Today is January 15th, and today's quote is entitled, "The Grass Doesn't Complain." Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that grass doesn't resist when it is walked upon or thrown around. It doesn't complain or scream out, "How dare you step on me, throw me here and there." As they say in California, it goes with the flow. We're advised to be like grass in our tolerance. Of course, most of us fail miserably. Think of how many things you complained about last week. So this is interesting, because obviously we complain about a lot of things. And it's kind of embarrassing to make a list of everything we complain about, because then we'll realize we're all complainers, or at least most of us are complainers. And you might say, well, that's normal. There are a lot of things to complain about. Prabhu, it's the material world. I could complain all day. Okay, that's true. But as devotees who are practicing Krishna consciousness, we're supposed to practice tolerance. Tolerance is a necessary aspect or characteristic, aspect of consciousness or characteristic for executing bhakti, for progressing in bhakti. And tolerance is really the essence of humility. So if we're not tolerant, it's going to be more problematic for our spiritual lives. So, in this quote, which I must get back to, excuse me, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, grass doesn't complain when it's thrown around. So what does that mean? It means, obviously what it means is we're not in control, as bad as is that news to all of us, because we desperately want to be in control. The position of Supreme Controller, unfortunately, is already taken, and there are no replacements available. So we're not in that position, and we don't like it, and that's why we complain. We resist what's going on in the environment. We want it to go left, it goes right, and we can't tolerate it. Why? Because we can't control it, and we desperately want to control. So now let's look at tolerance in that light. As we all know, basic principle of spiritual life is we're not the controller, and therefore we have to allow things which we can't not control to try not to control them. Well, it doesn't get more simple than that. That is so simple, but we don't do it. We resist it, we fight it, our conditioning. We want to control. And most of the trouble we have is because we're trying to control things which we cannot control, especially we're trying to control other people, which is very, very difficult to control. And the paradox, the irony is that energy that we put in trying to control other people should be put in trying to control ourselves, our own mind and senses, which is, of course, difficult. And because it's difficult, we would prefer to try to control others, which we believe is easier, but in fact, it isn't. It seems easier to control other people. It's impossible, virtually. But at least we have some chance of controlling ourselves. So, wanted to bring attention in this quote just to the fact that if we are complaining complaining a lot, it is a symptom of a spiritual problem, a spiritual weakness. Because if we're advancing or trying to advance, then trinadapi sunichena tororiva sahishnana. Tolerant like a tree, that means don't complain about everything. Tolerate it. That is a consciousness we need to be in to do what? Kirtaniya sada hari. If we're not in that consciousness, then Mahaprabhu says, if you're in complaining consciousness, you're not in the consciousness to chant the holy name. Now, recently, we were in Mayapur and we did 5-day course on Namaparad. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, this verse, Trinadapi Sunichena, this is the verse which, if you master this verse, then you will not make any offenses. If you actually learn how to become humble, there's no question you will offend anybody or any devotees. And if you become humble, then you can chant Shuddhana And Shuddhanam is the goal. So please remember this. Shuddhanam, pure chanting, is the goal. If we're not humble, we cannot chant purely. And if we're always complaining, red flags should go off in our minds. That is the sign that I am not practicing humility like a blade of grass, but I'm complaining about the environment and people and situations. It's not a good qualification for being Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna.